Hey everyone, welcome back. And today we are working on blending modes and how to work those in a more advanced way. So for you this week, you are working on a collage and also on a selfie portrait. So I thought I'd sort of mix the two and make it a selfie portrait collage. So I've got a couple pieces and parts here I want to play with. And I've already actually done a few things to this little white heart here. In fact, this white heart, if you want to, you can look in this layers palette and see that I have already done a blending mode. Right up here, usually, it would say normal. And when that heart is normal, it is black. And while I love it that way, I can't see it the way I'd like to. So this is where we can really mess with some things. And the cool part is that it's sort of a scrubby effect. So as you scroll over each of the effects, you will see, while it is subtle, that there is something happening in each shift of the tool. Okay. So these guys right here, these are all of the sort of opposites, right? So I actually want to divide at that point. So I could have it be in white, which is the opposite. And then I could drop its opacity if I wanted to, get it a little closer to the color I'm going for. And now when we do a blending mode only applies to that layer. And that being said, each layer affects the other. So if you have a blending mode on one layer, you might not have a blending mode on the other layer, but it will affect it. Okay. And now if you take and you have a blending mode on one layer, and then you add a blending mode to another layer, all of a sudden, right now I'm on my face, that image. And so I'm changing the blending mode of my portrait. And all of a sudden, you see how now we have the heart affecting the image of me, but me affecting the images below me. And then that in turn allows the heart to affect other layers. So what's going on here? This is the cool thing about blending modes. They've broken it up pretty easily. So you have the normal and dissolve. Dissolve essentially, if you won't see a change in dissolve unless you drop the opacity. But you can see pretty quickly what dissolve stands for right there. It starts breaking down the image. Now, this upper section relates to the black areas in the image, the dark areas. So if you want the darker areas to pop forward in an image, you want to use these ones right here. And if you're using an illustration and you want only the black areas of the illustration to show, these are the same ones you want to use. Okay, that's that magical trick. So I actually do kind of like some of these, but they're a little dark for me right now. And then down here, these affect the white areas, the lighter areas of an image. So you want those parts to pop forward and be affected. These are it. Now this one, this whole chunk has to do with light. Overlay is probably the most, like what most people think of when they think of a layer. It's actually what we would call the like a watermark to some degree, the overlay. And then we have soft light, hard light, and all of the appropriate lights. And it really just messes with vibrance, overall color effect. There's some great stuff in there. I really love this part of the heart that's making my ear look like I have a butterfly ear. I like that right there. And then these guys, we talked about those a minute ago. They're the opposites. And then we have messing with hue, saturation, luminosity. They each do a different thing. They're all very cool. And again, when you use different layers and they each have different effects, you're starting to see why this sort of stuff truly matters as to how you, the way you want a piece to look, the way you want a project to look, starts becoming more and more important because you can make these changes happen. So right now, I'm going to do a tiny touch of erasing. I know, destructive editing, but it's minimal. It's just this edge. I want to soften it. I don't want to get rid of any content on me, but I really do want sort of more soft edge. Like I belong in this photo. So it's going to be a mix of the things that I taught you last week, a mix of things from this week to really make these collages become almost fused. So they become completely their own pieces of work. You almost can't recognize the parts that made them up. And that's sort of that magic that Photoshop brings as an artist. I remember the first time showing, you know, a client a piece and they just were blown away. And I'm like, it's just smoke and mirrors, you know. We really have the ability to do some super cool stuff in Photoshop, and most people cannot figure out how it's done. But I'm hoping that with these tutorials here that you are getting a good inclination of how and what we do here to get what we want. Now, I just did a very destructive edit by cropping. I don't encourage you to crop in here other than when it's absolutely necessary, because you can always select an area and make it a new image or a file separate. You don't have to destructively edit it. But you know, I'm showing you all the things. Why not? Because I can. So some other things that might be really interesting to you is that you can select multiple layers and you can link them together. So I really like the positioning of me and the clocks together. So I'm going to link that. And so if at any time I move something, the clock's coming with me, okay? You see? It's a powerful little thing right there. Now, I've got another image I wanted to bring in, and here it is. And I want it to be bigger. I'm free transforming right now, Control T. Bringing it down in size. And if I hold my Command key again, and that would be Control for those of you on a PC, I can get a skew going. And that can be from any point or any angle per se, right? So that's pretty close. So the idea there is we're gonna take that and stick that heart kind of up in there. And in this case, on this one, I need to rasterize it. And then I'm going to go with a mask on this one. So the mask is right between the effects and the adjustment layers that we did a video on that earlier. The mask is right there. So we can click on that. And then, you know, here's the thing. When you're in a mask, and I'm sure you saw this in the other tutorials, you will have the little white box selecting that area. So when you have that selected, then you can comfortably come on over and take your eraser. And what you're doing is you're messing with that layer mask, not the image like I did with my head and my face, right? This is the easier way of going about this and not destroying the image itself, right? So I don't know if I'm gonna keep my hands in there or not. I really just want this heart that I've made here. It's gonna replace that clock, or maybe apply into the clock. Who knows? We'll figure it out. So you could see how this, well, that could be a little tedious, but we can also still use our selection tools. And that's helpful too. Didn't take it. Okay, let's try that again. Remember, this tool in particular reads according to the size of the brush that you have working with. So, you know, that's something to keep in mind too. So that's getting closer to what I'm seeking here. I don't really know that I want all of that hand in there. It kind of looks abstracted at this point. All right, I'll give it up. I'll give up the hand. You can see how this sort of effect can be made. And if I don't love this, I could cover over it, redo it again, or I could simply trash it. I don't want the whole layer trashed. And that's the other thing, be careful when you do this. You want to take and just trash the adjustment layer, or the mask. So from here, I can continue doing more work. And again, you know, each layer affects the other. So when you do these effects with blending modes, you know, you don't necessarily have to have all your layers on, but it's kind of important to have it, you know, the ones that are working with each other, to have them available so you can see how over the long term that's going to look. And I don't know that I'm going to be able to get that heart to pop quite the way I wanted to do with these. So I might have to go a little further and maybe do another layer or something under it. I hope that these blending mode techniques are helpful to you. And if you have any questions, holler. Be well.